shoot, I think I just broke my ankle. Can you come pick me up and drive me to the hospital? I don't think that's a good idea. What if we make it worse by getting you there? I just call you an ambulance. Let the pros handle it and I'll meet you at the hospital. No, don't call an ambulance. Are you crazy? That'll cost me like $2 grand. What? In Germany, ambulances are free. Yeah, but you guys also pay 50% taxes. No thank you.
Do Germans really pay 50% in taxes? Let's clear some things up. Hello, servus, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Feli. I'm originally from Munich, Germany, but I've been living here in Cincinnati, Ohio, on and off since 2016. And over the last 8 years, I've noticed that a lot of Americans seem to be under the impression that Germany and many other European countries have a tax rate of 50%. And many people conclude from this that while it appears that Germans get more things for free, such as education, healthcare services, and social benefits, they do in fact pay for all of these things through their taxes. So today I want to dive into how much taxes you really pay in Germany. Spoiler, it's not 50%. And why these conclusions can be pretty misleading. And because taxes and finances can be a really overwhelming topic to deal with and can cause a lot of anxiety, I'm happy that this video is sponsored by BetterHelp, where you can start therapy fully online from the comfort of your home. Especially right now during the dark winter months, I know that a lot of people struggle with seasonal depression. The holiday high is over. For many people, the holidays also caused a lot of emotional tension, and it's not uncommon to stress about the new year that lies ahead. So please know that if you're having a tough time mentally right now, you're not alone. And if you feel like you can't get out of it by yourself right now, please don't hesitate to get professional help. I myself tried therapy with BetterHelp actually back in 2020. In-person therapy wasn't really possible at the time, and I loved how easy it was to sign up for BetterHelp, fill out the questionnaire, and then get matched with a credentialed therapist in as little as 48 hours. And then you can schedule video call sessions, that's what I did for the most part, or phone sessions, or even just message your therapist, depending on what you feel most comfortable with. And if you feel like they're not quite the right fit for you yet, which is totally normal, just like in any human interaction, you just gotta find someone you connect with, BetterHelp allows you to switch to someone else at no additional cost. The new year is a blank space for you to write a new story, and BetterHelp is there to get you that fresh start. So if you wanna try it out, just click the link in the description below or go to betterhelp.com/Feli and get 10% off your first month of therapy. So what do the tax brackets in Germany really look like? Let's take a look at the income tax rates for 2024. In German, it's called Einkommensteuer. So every euro you earn up to 11,784 euros is completely tax-free. Everything from that up to 17,005 euros will be taxed at 14 to 24%. Then everything from that 17,000 mark to 66,760 euros will be taxed at 24 to 42%. Everything from 66,000 up to 277,825 euros will be taxed at 42%, and everything above that is taxed at the highest rate, which is 45%. Now you might be thinking, okay, it's 45% and not quite 50, but tomato, that's still super close to 50%, which is extremely high. And yes, that's true. But even if you do make over 277,000 euros a year, it doesn't mean your income taxes will be 45% of that. Because what many people don't realize is that when your income enters a higher tax bracket, only the income that falls into that higher bracket is taxed at that higher rate. That's how it works in the US too, by the way, but I think a lot of people don't realize that about the US either. If, let's say, you make 100,000 euros a year, only the chunk that's over the 66,760 euro mark will be taxed at 42%, and none of your income will be taxed at 45%. The two categories where it says 14 to 24% and then 24 to 42% are called Progressionszonen, so progression zones, because here your tax rate simply goes up progressively for every euro you make above that, which makes it a little hard to calculate the income tax on your own. But first of all, there are free calculator tools out there where you can just type in the numbers and it'll tell you how much tax you owe. And secondly, if you're employed in Germany, you don't actually have to calculate your taxes at all because you're not obligated to file a tax return. Unlike in the US, where even a regular W-2 salary employee has to file a tax return every year. But getting back to our example, so ultimately on a taxable income of 100,000 euros a year, if you're filing as a single person, you'd effectively end up paying about 31,000 euros in income tax, plus about 1,500 euros for the Solidaritätszuschlag, the solidarity surcharge. That's a tax that goes back to German reunification in the 1990s. Nowadays, only higher income people have to pay that, but with a six-figure income, you do fall under that. And of course, if you're a registered member of an official religious community, you'd also have to pay church tax, which I explained a little more in detail in this video, but that's technically a choice, so we're gonna set that aside for now. So at the end of the day, with income tax and the solidarity surcharge, we would owe a total of about 32,937 euros, which equals an effective tax rate of a little under 33%. And that's a pretty different number from 50%. Now you're probably wondering how high your tax rate would be in the US for the same income, and we'll try to look into that, but I think it's important to point out that it's not really possible to compare the tax rates in both countries one-on-one, just because they're two completely different tax systems, and there will always be aspects that aren't 100% comparable. And of course, the two countries also use different currencies, but at the time of recording this video, the exchange rate is pretty close. 1 euro currently equals 1.03 US dollars, and we're talking about percentages for the most part anyway, so I feel like it's easiest if we just stick with euros when we talk about the German system and US dollars when we talk about the American system. Now, unlike in Germany, where there's only one income tax for the entire country, in the US, your income tax actually depends on where you live exactly, because you typically have to file a federal tax return, but then also a separate tax return to the state you live in. And sometimes you even have to pay local income tax to the city or town you live in. That's the case in Cincinnati, for instance. But we'll just look at a few examples from different locations all over the US. What stays the same no matter where you live is the federal income tax rate. And for 2024, the tax brackets look like this. Everything up to $11,600 is taxed at 10%. So there's no 0% bracket like in Germany. Then everything from the 11,000 mark to $47,150 is taxed at 12%. From there up to $100,525 is taxed at 22%. Then the part up to $191,950 is taxed at 24%. From there to $243,725 is taxed at 32%. Anything from there up to $609,350 is taxed at 35%. And everything above that is taxed at the highest tax rate, which in the US is 37%. Now, most tax filers in the US, even employees, can claim a standard deduction of $14,600. But since the German calculator tool I used for this used 100,000 euros as the final taxable income, we're gonna assume that $100,000 is already the income we got after the standard deduction, if that makes sense. I know this is a lot of numbers, bear with me. So this means that with a yearly income of 100,000 US dollars, your federal tax would come out to be $17,053, which is an effective tax rate of 17.05% of your income. Now, if you live in New York City, you'll also have to pay $5,828 in state taxes and $4,007 of local taxes to the city. So your total income taxes would be $26,888, which makes it an effective tax rate of 26.88%. In San Francisco, you'd end up paying a total of 25.44%. In Chicago, where they don't have a local tax, you'd only pay 22.58%. And if you live in Orlando, Florida, where they don't have any state income tax, you'd actually just end up paying the federal tax, meaning your effective income tax rate would only be 17.05% total. total. What we can see in all of these examples is that in general, income taxes in the US are lower than they are in Germany. With a few exceptions. People with a lower income, let's say $20,000 a year, would actually end up paying more taxes in the US, for example, where they would owe 10.84% for federal taxes alone, and in most cases there will be additional state and local taxes, while in Germany it would only be 8.62% total. Or to give you another example, when you're self-employed, the US charges you a self-employment tax of 15.3% in addition to your regular income tax, which is why as a self-employed person in Cincinnati, Ohio, you might end up with an effective tax rate of 37%, when in Germany you'd only have to pay 29%. I heard that was the case for a German YouTuber living in the US a few years ago, but don't worry, my business is set up differently now. And technically, the self-employment tax is to make up for the employer's portion of Social Security and Medicare contributions, so it's kind of complicated to compare, but it is included as a normal tax on your tax return. Now, of course, what we also have to keep in mind is that the vast majority of people in Germany simply don't make over 277,000 euros a year, and therefore never have to deal with the 45% tax bracket to begin with. In 2023, the average German made about 54,000 euros a year before taxes, which for a single filer means they pay about 23% in income tax. And for that, they get quite a lot in return, including free education, a good and affordable healthcare system, well-developed infrastructure, and comprehensive social benefits, among other things. If we take a closer look at education, not only is it normal for kids to go to public schools in Germany, they're also considered really high quality, which is why private schools aren't nearly as common as they are in the US. But even public universities are tuition-free in Germany, and students only have to pay about 200 to 400 euros in fees per semester to get a bachelor's degree, master's, or even a doctorate's degree. So you don't have to worry about paying off these high amounts of student loans after you graduate, which is the case for most college graduates in the US. About 30% of American adults have at some point taken out loans for their education, with the average loan amount for just a bachelor's degree being close to 40,000 US dollars. But especially students who attend private universities, all the Ivy League universities are private, for example, and or students who decide to get a master's degree or go to medical school or law school in the US often graduate with 100,000 to 200,000 US dollars of student loan debt. That's unheard of in Germany. In regards to healthcare, while Germans do still have to pay health insurance, the taxes help subsidize the system to keep the cost of treatments and medications low, and they also cover health insurance for people who are unemployed, for example. As a result, this fear of high medical bills that's so prevalent here in the US is virtually non-existent in Germany. An EpiPen for allergic reactions costs about 150 euros in Germany, but over $600 in the US, for example. Giving birth in the US, even when you have health insurance, still usually requires a copay from the patients of thousands, if not tens of thousands of dollars, while in Germany, you usually don't have to pay a dime. And an ambulance ride in the US with insurance can cost anywhere from $250 to $1,500, and without insurance, it's often somewhere around $2,000 or higher. So that skit from the beginning of the video is very much based on a true story. And it's even become a phenomenon that Americans choose to call an Uber in an emergency situation instead of an ambulance. In Germany, when we had to call an ambulance for one of the travelers on my group trip last year, they only billed him a total of 68 euros for the ride and the paramedics. Health insurance in Germany also usually covers 100% of the costs and doesn't require a large copay every time, as is normal for American health insurance plans. At the end of the day, over 100 million Americans have some type of medical debt, and when people get seriously ill, it's common to see them start crowdfunding campaigns to be able to pay for their treatments. It even happens that after someone passes away, their family is left to deal with these insanely high hospital bills. Meanwhile, in Germany, medical debt is so rare that they don't even have a statistic about it. In terms of infrastructure, while Germany definitely needs to catch up on things like digitalization, especially our roads and overall transportation system is considered one of the best in the world, and And yes, if you live in a German city, it's not usually necessary to own a car due to public transportation. Lastly, Germans also get a lot of their tax money back in the form of social benefits. This includes programs like unemployment benefits, but also child benefits of 255 euros that parents receive per child per month. It includes up to 3 years of paid parental leave and affordable childcare, most of which is non-for-profit and government funded. On average, Germans only pay about 170 euros per month and child for full-time daycare, while here in Cincinnati, it's around 1,500 a month, and that number gets a lot higher in bigger cities. So especially when we look at families with kids, in Germany, most of them end up with more money in their pockets at the end of the day, despite the higher taxes, compared to families in the US who don't have to pay quite as much in taxes, but have higher out-of-pocket expenses. Ashton from the YouTube channel Type Ashton actually did 2 really comprehensive videos about this a couple years ago, where she did a thorough breakdown of living expenses in the 2 countries. I'll link those down below for you guys. The comments underneath that video are really interesting too, with many people sharing their particular financial situation. And she didn't just discuss taxes in these videos, but also went over all the other factors that play a role here, such as the higher salaries in the US, the overall lower living expenses in Germany, paid vacation days, the social security systems and pensions in both countries. And her example showed that a single person with a college degree, working as an engineer, who doesn't have kids and is in good health, is most likely better off financially in the US, but a family with 2 kids was better off in Germany. But of course, this also always depends on your individual situation and lifestyle choices. But fact is, the German system provides a lot of value for its citizens, which is why a lot of Germans are actually okay with paying these high taxes. And you might even hear people say that they'd be willing to pay even more taxes if the government used it to everyone's benefit. I'm not saying every German thinks like that, but some people definitely do. Of course, Germany isn't the only country with high tax rates. Many other European countries have comparable tax rates or tax even more than Germany does, like Belgium, Denmark, Sweden, or Finland, for example. To summarize all of this, the vast majority of Germans pay around 20 to 30% of income tax, not 50%. And depending on their individual circumstances, many people get a lot more in return than what they pay in. Plus, they always know that there's a social safety net in case they or someone in their family ever gets sick, loses their job, or simply has kids. And to many people, that alone is worth a lot. So do Germans pay for these benefits with their taxes? In a way, yes. But a lot of these lower prices in healthcare and education, for example, are also due to price regulations and laws. And even if you don't pay a lot into the tax system yourself because you don't have a lot of income at the moment, these benefits apply to you too. So it's definitely more of a solidary approach where our tax contributions are supposed to benefit the whole society and not just ourselves. Whether you prefer the American system or the German one is completely up to you, of course. But I hope I could provide a little more insight with this video, at least in regards to income tax, because of course there are a lot of other taxes too in our everyday lives, such as sales tax, which we didn't even touch on, and additional contributions that both Germans and Americans pay towards social welfare, like Social Security or Medicare contributions in the US or Rentenversicherung in Germany. What are your thoughts on this topic? And would you be okay paying higher taxes to get these German benefits? Or vice versa, if you live in Germany or another country with higher taxes, would you prefer paying less taxes but have higher out-of-pocket expenses in return? Let me know in the comments below. And of course, if you enjoy what I do here on my channel, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and follow me on my other social media platforms too. My handle is always @Feli from Germany. And with that, I hope I'll see you over there or next time here on YouTube. Tschüss!